Good evening, Fitboxers. It's Tris here from Fitbox doing our Friday Fitbox live broadcast. If you're watching this live, I would love you to hit like and also ask you why you're watching it live, why you're not going out and doing something interesting. If you're also watching this because this is being recorded and obviously you can watch it afterwards, please hit like, share with your friends. That'd be fantastic. Like I say, it's been audio recorded as well, so we can put it out on the podcast. So happy Friday, everyone. So today, I wanted to talk about, I've got my cue cards here. If you've never seen me before, my name's Tris, and I'm from Fitbox. I run a little company doing PT and health coaching and stuff. I'm recording this currently in my house, which is a mad house. I've got my son laughing uncontrollably at the TV. So if you hear an 8-year-old laughing at impractical jokers, that's just my son. He's a nutter. So again, thanks for watching. Just like if you want, or share with your friends. That'd be fantastic. So this week, I don't know if you're aware, was National Obesity Awareness Week. Probably not aware, but this week I've done a series of 3 blogs in a series that have shone a light on obesity and its problems and its medical conditions. So I'm going to go through that a little bit tonight. So like I say, I've got my cue cards and we're ready to go. So I'm going to put that on there. That's great. So give me 1 second. Should be on there. No, it's not working. Right, okay, so what I want to talk about today is about obesity and the issues it has on society and things like that. So about 7 years, so I'm 37, about 7 years ago when I was 30, I was 15 stone. So looking at my BMI at whatever height I was, 5'10", and at 15 stones, technically I was considered to be obese. Now at the time I didn't really think I was obese, but clinically looking at my BMI I was. So at my heaviest I was 15 stone. I then had an epiphany and decided to lose all that weight and went down to 11.5 stone. So I fluctuated in weight from being obese down to probably underweight to then being the weight I am, which is a sort of healthy weight. So I've got a bit of experience when talking about obesity. I'm quite happy to talk about it because, you know, I've been there and I know what it's like. Before Christmas, I went to Alton Towers with the family, which we do every year, and we went to Splash Landings, which is the water park there. And looking around, and I wasn't judging anyone at all, but looking around, there were very few people who I would consider to be a healthy weight. A lot of people were, I would say, overweight or obese, and I would say a good 80% of people there were in that category, and that's something I feel that's becoming more and more common, and the statistics do back that up, and I'll talk about that a little bit as well as we go on. But you know, it led me to think that, you know, if that's just a cross section of society, what's going to happen with everyone in the future is, you know, stupidly set the mind ticking. And I thought about, is this the next stage of human evolution? You know, realistically, no, it's not, because it doesn't happen in 40 years. Evolution takes a very long time to kick in. But, you know, it led me on to thinking, what's happening to us? So some of the statistics, like I said, I was going to talk about. In 2015, the data shows that 27% of people in the UK were obese. And that's a rise of 15% in 1993. So we've gone up a good 12% in just over 10 years in the rate of obesity, which is quite a big rise. A third of children are currently overweight at age 11, and a fifth of them are obese. So, you know, that's increased from 1993. You know, and the UK is currently the fattest country in Western Europe. So, you know, we've got good credentials in being obese, and it's only going to get worse as we go on into the future. But then it led me on to thinking about the history of obesity. And, I know there's been a rise in the last 40 or 50 years. But is this something, looking back, is this something that society's had to deal with in the past? And so I looked into it. So the ancient Greeks and Egyptians first identified obesity. They knew all about obesity. It was in their society already. And they thought that it was the harbinger of disease even then. So going back thousands of years, they believed that being obese brought on diseases. Just the very fact that you were obese brought on different diseases. And back in India in 600 BC, so 600 years BC, doctors realised and recognised that those that were obese were at risk from heart disease. So even back then, they knew that obesity was an issue. It was a long-term issue, and that it brought the other diseases into play once you were obese. But in those days, food was scarce. It was in much more limited supply than it is today because farming wasn't mechanised and that sort of thing. People weren't very rich. So in those days, being obese was seen, someone who was obese was seen as being very rich, and there was a sign of status within their community. And in the 17th century, it was recognised that being obese was a societal problem, that it wasn't a medical problem in so much that people had genes that made them more obese or whatever. It was a fact that it was a society issue. So, as I mentioned briefly before, since the 1950s, there's been an increase in wealth, worldwide wealth after the Second World War. There's been an increase in mechanised farming, so a much more mechanised farming than was previously available. There's been farming using genetically modified crops and pesticides and herbicides and that sort of thing is making growing food much easier. So food is in much greater supply than it was before. Processed foods are much more processed since the 1950s, and therefore obesity has begun to increase. It's not a surprise really that obesity has increased. With those things, it's always going to be the way. So that's sort of the history of obesity. We know where we are currently. So a method of measuring obesity or measuring our body mass is the body mass index, the BMI, which is something that's used even today by the NHS and probably and also in the US and other medical institutions around the world. And it's basically your height and your weight considered, and it gives you a number. So it could be, for me to be a healthy weight for my height and age would be something around 23. My BMI would be about 23. So that would be sort of healthy for me. So that it's an old formula that's been around for hundreds of years. But a chap called Ansel Keys, who was an American chap, who was very high in the nutritional establishment in the States, in 1972 backed this as a very good way for measuring if people were overweight or obese. And in the 1980s, 1985, the US government backed it through their medical institutions, and therefore it got taken up by the rest of the world and is seen as still by most institutions as the way of measuring if you are overweight. It has its flaws, unfortunately. It's great for measuring weight and mass over a great demographic of people, a great amount of people. So for millions of people, it's quite a good way of getting some general statistics about who are overweight and who are fat. But individually, it's not very, very good. Everyone is different. And, even you could be the same height and age as someone, but for you to have, you could be a stone heavier than them, but be healthier than them. So BMI is not a great way of working out if you as an individual are at a healthy stage. What's recognised now is the hip to waist ratio, where the hip, basically, the hip should be wider than your tummy or waist. So that's a much better way, because of where we carry the fat. Our visceral fat, which is the fat around the organs, is much more indicative of being unhealthy than the subcutaneous fat that we carry, which is the fat under the skin. So that's a great way of measuring it, the hip to waist ratio. So the cost to the country and the economy. So in the UK, it costs us about £27 billion a year in the UK. Obesity does, through sick days, lack of productivity, but also medical issues and all the extra medical appointments and procedures that need to be done for people who are obese. So for the NHS, it's about £5.1 billion a year. So if you think the annual budget for the NHS is around about 120 billion, give or take a few billion. So it's almost 5% of the budget for the NHS is used up purely for obesity-related issues. That's quite a big chunk of change to be used up every year. So to equate that, that's 163,000 nurses, extra nurses per year that could pay for, or 222,000 newly qualified teachers. So just imagine what we could do with that money, in education or in the NHS. Rather than being short-handed all the time, we could have a fully populated NHS or a much better teaching system, education system. So it has a massive impact on our economy, on our society, huge. So medical effects that it has on us as a human being, if you're obese, what sort of things have you got to look forward to? So if you are obese, it reduces your lifespan by 6 years on average, so 6 years less if you're obese. And if you are morbidly obese, then you can look at a reduction of, on average, 10 years on your life, which is huge. There are so many health conditions related to obesity that it would take me too long to go into them all individually. But just to give you a rundown, it has issues around your heart, lungs, skin, reproductive system, cancers, sleep problems, stomach issues, liver, and importantly, though probably overlooked, is the mental aspect of obesity and the issues that has around confidence and that type of thing, and the issues behind why some people are obese. So looking at that now, I have a little cycle which I've written down on one of my cue cards. I'm not sure if you can see it. I'm going to try and hold that up and see if. There we go. Look, so that's what we have. So this is sort of the shame eating cycle. So we've got stress up here, that side. So we've got stress. So feelings of stress would lead people to need comfort. So, and that would lead on to the need to eat. So we then eat, we feel good. We feel good for a very, very short period of time before the feelings of guilt because we have eaten and we have broken our diet, or we know we really shouldn't be eating the things that we're eating. We then start to feel guilty again, which then leads back into, I feel guilty, therefore I'm going to feel stress again. Then we go back round the cycle. So this is the sort of unhealthy eating cycle that a lot of people go through, and we all go through it. I go through it on a regular basis. I'm constantly having conversations in my own head about what I should be eating and what I shouldn't be eating. My weight will fluctuate up and down depending on the time of year it is. This is not particular just to a few of us. Everyone, I am 100% sure, has gone through this and will always go through this. And we just need to break that cycle. So how do we tackle it? How do we tackle obesity? On a global level, it needs to be tackled by governments, be that with sugar tax or whatever, however they choose to deal with it. There needs to be implementation of some sort of procedures for schools as well. But how do we tackle it individually? You know, it's really hard. It's not easy, like I said, with our cycle, our stress eating cycle. It's really hard work. It's never going to be easy. It's always going to be hard work. If someone says there's an easy out of it, but then they're lying. It's always going to be difficult. What's really important, what's really, really helpful, is that you have a support network that can help you. And that can be someone from your family, it can be friends, it can be NHS support groups, counselling, Facebook groups. There's some really good Facebook groups out there which will help. But support group, in my mind, is the most important thing. It's someone to help you break that cycle of the guilt, shame, eating, that will just give you that help, basically, and that support when you need it. You will need a ruckload of patience. You'll need lots and lots of patience, because there's no quick fix, and this will not just happen overnight. So there's no quick fix. You just got to stick with it. Make small changes. But we'll touch upon that in a different Facebook Live. We need to take responsibility. Definitely, we need to take responsibility. Not only if we are overweight or obese, or if our children are overweight or obese. You know, if a 7-year-old is overweight or obese, then it's not their fault, it's the fault of the parents. So we need to take responsibility. We can't keep putting it off to government, or putting it on to the food companies who are there to make a profit. We have to take responsibility for ourselves. We cannot keep putting it off to other people. If we don't do that, and we don't tackle obesity as a societal problem, then we're going to be the first generation that will not live as long as our parents. We were potentially the first generation that will die younger than our parents have died, or even our children may die before we do because of the effects of obesity. Now we'll just let that sink in, because that's quite scary to think that because of that, because of obesity, our children may not live as long as us. Now, that's extremely scary. And this isn't in 150 years' time. This is now. This is in our lifetime that this is a massive, massive problem, and we need to get to grips with it. So that's my 2 penneth on obesity. That's what I think. I hope this has been helpful and has helped shine a light on obesity. And as it's Obesity Awareness Week, I thought of no better time to do it. As I said, please like this video. Please share it with others. I also have a blog which goes out, and I will put the link in the comments. So I'd love you to read the blog. Also sign up through the blog for the email list, and you'll get the blog straight to your email, so you'll never ever miss one. Also, if you sign up to the email list, you also get a 7-day workbook, and a series of emails over the week that will help you start to get healthier with little steps. So there's 1 step every day, so it's 7 steps, a little 7-day workbook, which will really, really help you. It helps you look at your food, it helps you look at your water intake, your sleep, your exercise, and it allows you to note that all down, so at the end of the week you can start to be on the way to a load of the healthy habits. So that's really, really good. Also look out for my podcast, which is coming out very, very shortly. But until next time, thank you for listening and watching, and take care. If you have any comments on the video or the subject that we talked about, obesity, please pop them below in the comment section below. That would be fantastic. But until next time, thanks very much for listening. Keep it simple. See you soon.